Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I am so excited because we get to open up the new year in a very powerful way. My name is Dianne Solano. I'm an orthomolecular nutritionist. And as you may or may not know, every other week we talk about very empowering tools around health, strategies you can use to implement into your life to really hone in on your body's genetic potential. Why the body is so powerful. And this is one of my most favorite topics. Being in the nutrition field for 20 years, I realized, wow, we are so much more complex than we were made to believe. So the goal today is to give you information to help and inspire you, to educate you, to really take your health, which, by the way, you're your own best health advocate. And we feature a lot of great speakers on today's show. So I'm very excited about today's topic because it's all around the power of our innate healing using emotions. Our special guest today is going to share some of the wonderful tools she uses with her clients and her followers around the world, being able to transform, yes, ladies and gentlemen, their autoimmunity potential, basically your immune system getting it stronger, more vibrant, more empowered. So a little disclaimer, information here is to exactly do that. Share information, not to diagnose, not to detect. That's the conversation you need to have with your own doctor. Rather, we're here to inspire and give you tools for you to do just a little more research and go deeper inside that potential that you have. So with no further ado, I'm going to welcome our wonderful show guest. We're going to call her Alyssa Fox, also known as the Holistic Ginger. And Alyssa is our wonderful integrative health coach. She is a specialist in using thought feeling therapy, also known as tapping, and is known for her specialty in helping many women around the world deal with autoimmunity. So, Alyssa, I don't want to take up any more time. We only have 30 minutes to share, but I loved hearing your story because I think one of the most important things as a practitioner is for someone to be passionate about what they do and wanting to help the world and wanting to help people have that transformation for them to be the best version of themselves. So if you don't mind opening up today's conversation around your personal story and your personal journey, because I just think when you've gone through it is when you can be the most compassionate and the best of service. Would that be okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
Wonderful.
First and foremost, Diane, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share my story. I know that this is such an important topic, and being able to shed light on this and also bridge connection for women who are dealing with this and maybe they feel they don't have the answers or they feel isolated and alone, knowing that there's solutions, knowing that there's others who have been through the journey, who have found light at the end of the tunnel is so important. So, how I got into health coaching and then specifically why I'm so passionate about autoimmunity is based on my own journey and my own story. So, when I was a child, I started to develop multiple food sensitivities, and it just seemed like something was always wrong. And then by age 7, I was actually diagnosed with manic depression and anxiety. And it didn't matter how many doctors I went to, nobody seemed to really be able to figure out what was wrong with me. I got a lot of conflicting answers, shoulder shrugs, and I carried into adulthood with multiple, what I now know were autoimmune conditions that were undiagnosed and feeling really defeated. So in my mid 20s, I started to explore alternative modalities and just really seeking and becoming my own health advocate to find solutions so that I could begin to feel better. And through this work, I've learned so much about the correlation between our emotions and our traumas and how our body responds. Like, we're not just physical beings, we're emotional beings, we're spiritual beings, and everything is all connected. So, something that I discovered was called ACEs when I was in school for health coaching, which is adverse childhood experiences. And this was when I was really just starting to dive into autoimmune and learn about, root causes and inflammation and all the things that go along with autoimmune. So I took this ACEs test. I scored 8 out of 10 for adverse childhood experiences. And I started to think back to all the trauma I'd experienced in childhood related to verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And it started really getting me thinking on how this had manifested into developed autoimmune conditions in early adolescence, into teenage years, and into adulthood. And then I thought, well, what are the solutions? How do we resolve this? Because even though we can look at the component of, yes, we do need to look at our nutrition, we do need to remove inflammatory foods, we do need to watch our toxin intake. What about the emotional component? So this is when I started to go more on a deeper spiritual and emotional healing journey to help. And the results that I found were quite profound. So I'm happy to say today I have been able to put most of my autoimmune symptoms into remission. I'm at a place where I have a very healthy baseline, and it's so incredible when you finally can find answers and you can find that better health that so many of us are seeking.
Thank you for sharing. I know that the body's really honest and it doesn't lie. And one
No.
thing I've learned throughout the years in practice was that, yes, I started off in the biochemical department, understanding what foods to eat, what foods not to eat, how certain chemicals affects our body, the biochemistry, the structure, how nutrients derive certain biochemical processes. But I also realized there were a lot of people doing things right and weren't getting results. And there were a lot of
Exactly.
people doing things wrong and they were just happy, healthy, go lucky. And that's when I sat back going, you know what, there's something more to this. And it wasn't until I started to really dive deeper into the whole concept of our emotions, of the energy vibration, how our cells, and science has proven it now, is 99.9% energy. And it's really 0.001% matter. What that means is that there's a lot of books out there. One of my favorites, Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of my favorites, Dr. Bruce Lipton. These are wonderful resources for anybody on the show that wants to dive deeper about how our cells are really bathing in microseconds and lightning speed and in frequency of emotions and energy. So I think what the work you're doing is so big because it's helping a lot of people on the planet being able to tap into the emotional component that's holding them back through years of trauma. And the trauma doesn't have to be huge. It could be, very light trauma. But whether it's from childhood, teenage years, even your adult life, I mean, we are emotional beings and emotions play a very big role. So maybe if you can talk two things. One is, what is autoimmunity? Because maybe somebody has an autoimmune issue, they don't even know what it is. And they could be candidates for this. And maybe some tips, baseline autoimmune tips that you give, that you suggest for anyone going through this path and through this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So autoimmunity is a term, it's kind of like an umbrella term because there's actually been identified as over 150 different types of autoimmune conditions. And to be honest, I'm sure there's more than that, and science just hasn't been able to identify them yet. But the baseline of any type of autoimmune condition is when there's a chronic inflammatory or systemic inflammatory response in the system. And this can be triggered by a multitude of things. But essentially, what starts happening is when we have this inflammatory response in the body and the body is trying to address the inflammation, it begins attacking the wrong types of cells. And this can identify as a magnitude of different things. This can identify as psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, MS. There's such a magnitude of diabetes. There's such a magnitude of different chronic conditions that identify as an autoimmune condition. But at the root, really what's happening is that things are out of balance in the system. The system isn't responding the way that it should be. And we start to see a domino effect of, the organs or the system functions that start to go out of whack. So at the root, that's kind of what's happening. And then it kind of manifests in a variety of different ways in our physical body and as well in our emotional body as well. So
And
go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. Let's hear it. Let's hear
Yeah,
it.
one of the base things that we really need to address that's a really simple solution correlated with autoimmune is addressing the inflammation. And this is inflammation that is found in neural inflammation, gut inflammation, and then that leads to systemic full body inflammation. So being able to implement things into your daily practice that really help to reduce that inflammation, keep the inflammation in check, soothe and calm the body, soothe and calm the mind, that really helps to take some of the stress off of that high inflammatory response. That's basically like the red alert going off in your system chronically, which is the result from the condition. So things that I really love for inflammation specifically, spores, reishi spores have been a huge thing for me. I've noticed drastic improvements with inflammation from them. Also, I recommend them to everyone in my practice who's dealing with autoimmune. Turmeric is another one that's fantastic, especially turmeric that is in a fermented form and is paired with ginger, I find extremely effective. Things such as infrared sauna, low EMF preferred, but infrared sauna really helps to lower the inflammation and pro-inflammatory markers in the body, just to name a few. And sorry, Dianne, did you want me to touch on some other aspects of autoimmune and ways to balance it out as well?
Yeah, I think our viewers today would probably really enjoy some things that maybe they haven't even tried. There's so many people on the conventional bandwagon, and there's nothing wrong
Yeah,
with getting
absolutely.
that kind of feedback and getting that kind of testing, but it's limited. And our bodies are so intelligent, and there's so many other things that Mother Nature has so much potential to unlock. Healing potential to unlock nourishment in the body. Cells bathe on the environment of the biochemistry, which is what you're addressing, the turmeric, the spores. And by the way, if you don't know what spores are, they are a derivative of reishi mushroom, which, by the way, are really hard to find. But I know, Alyssa, you have access to these wonderful spores that are actually
Yes.
world renowned because they are like the baby fetuses of the reishi. They're just a lot more potent and powerful for healing. And of course, like you mentioned, the ginger, the turmeric, this is all Mother Nature's intelligence and power, which, by the way, we've thrived on for thousands of years on the earth. It's just that now, unfortunately, the chemical industry is just taken over, but we can't lose that intelligence and that innateness that we've been evolving through thousands of years. That is so powerful. And I love what you're naming, Alyssa, in terms of the strategies that you use as baseline, where people can start today. And you feel free to just share whatever you feel you want to share on today's conversation, and anything in terms of tapping as well. And the emotional piece would be really cool.
Absolutely. So the emotional component that comes into play with autoimmune obviously is really correlated with stress. So basic techniques that we can use on a daily basis to reduce our stress are so important and allows the body to go into that rest and digest stage and to also be able to heal. So one of my favorite things that I like to utilize on a daily basis is breath work. I do a really simple breathing technique. It was actually invented by Dr. Andrew Weil, who's a functional medicine practitioner, and it's based off of ancient practices in yogi practices, so Eastern medicine. But the 478 breath is, I like it because it's so simple and it doesn't take very much time, but it activates that parasympathetic nervous system and just calms everything down. So how you do the 478 breath is you are going to put your tongue on the roof of your mouth just behind your front teeth, and you're going to breathe in to the count of 4, hold for 7, and then breathe out for the count of 8, and repeat that 4 times. And that's one cycle. Now, you should notice a significant decrease in if you're having heart palpitations or just, like that tense, heightened sense of stress. It should really help to calm that in just 1 round, but you can do up to 4 rounds. Something else that I really like to utilize on a daily basis is meditation. And it doesn't need to be a really long meditation. Set yourself up for success. Start with a short meditation practice. If it's not something that you're used to having in your daily routine, 15 minutes. 15 minutes in the morning when you wake up, or before you go to bed at night, or even better, in the morning when you wake up and when you go to bed at night. And another thing that is really simple is gratitude. Gratitude helps to rewire the brain. When we're focusing on something positive, something that we're grateful for, something that we appreciate, that helps to, again, take that body out of that fight or flight state and be in more of a rest and digest mode. So those are a few of the things that you can implement on your own on a daily basis, as well as, going on daily walks, getting outside in nature is something that really helps to calm the body. As, Dianne was mentioning, utilizing the medicine of nature, herbs, and just being out in nature. Grounding is a really popular one. Getting your bare feet on the earth really helps to ground you, really helps, again, to lower those cortisol levels. And then something that I had discovered a few years ago and actually decided to train as a practitioner in because I noticed how powerful it was, is TFT, which is thought field therapy. Now, TFT is working with ancient medicines of the Chinese. You're working with the energy meridians of the body, but it's really been westernized and simplified it was coined by, or discovered, sorry, by Dr. Roger Callahan, who's a psychotherapist. And he discovered by tapping on certain energy meridians, acupressure, acupuncture points in the body, you could release stored emotional blockages and help to rewire the brain. So when you've got that really deep rooted trauma, and it's causing triggers, it's causing emotional blockages in your physical body, you're not able to shift that. This is really helping you to remove those blocks so the body can do what it wants to do, which is heal and find its way back to homeostasis. So the interesting thing about it, it's so cool to witness, is when you have a client and you get them to check in with themselves, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how strong is that emotion for you? If you can tune into an experience you had that, you know, was maybe very traumatic, and you rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, and a lot of people, it's quite high up there. They could say it's like an 8 or a 9. And you get them to do a specific tapping sequence that's customized for that trauma, and you watch the numbers start to go down until you can get it down to a 1 or a 0. And it's so incredible to see their response to that and how amazed they are that, you know, 5 minutes ago I felt this in my body like it was actually happening, like at 8, 9, or 10, and now I can barely feel it, or I can't feel it at all. So it's so incredible how quick and efficient it is to clear that emotional blockage in the body. And our body and our mind isn't cognitively aware of what's actually happening right now or what happened in the past. It feels real. So when you're continually re-experiencing that trauma, even though it's no longer happening, your body is stuck and your mind is stuck in this place of perpetual trauma, essentially. And so when you're getting it out of that state, you're able to have a much higher level of well-being and health. So this is why there's so much correlation with that trauma and with adult autoimmunity or chronic illness that develops, because that trauma we experienced in childhood that created this inflammatory response. It affects your inflammatory markers. They've done tons of studies on this. And then you get this systemic inflammation keeps building in the system, and the stress and everything, like it just builds into this giant black ball. And when you can utilize certain daily practices and things like tapping that are basically removing this black ball, and then you're able to find that what I call the autoimmune baseline, which you touched on, Dianne, where you have this stable baseline where you can feel more in control, you can manage your symptoms, you have higher happiness levels, a sense of relief, of peace, of well-being. It's such an incredible place to be able to get to. And I'm so grateful that, you know, science and medicine has come so far to be able to identify these certain markers and how they all correlate. And, you know, as we know with foods, it's so important to, you know, be eating a diet that's based around whole foods, organic foods, and, you know, making sure certain supplements. But as you said, Dianne, often people will be doing that, and those things are important, but there's other components that add into that. So when you add in the emotional component of freeing up your emotional storage, plus you're eating a healthy balanced diet, plus you're, you know, exercising, or you're doing these daily practices like meditation, watch how much your life shifts. Watch how much your sense of well-being and your daily life experience improves. It's incredible to witness and to experience yourself as well.
I love what you're passionate about, because you touch on all the critical pieces for ultimately a happy, whole life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good nourishment, the healthy cells, the healthy emotions, redefining who you are, and not letting your previous trauma, your pains, your stressors dictate your future and who you plan to become. Because we are essentially a record of history. And if your history says, I'm unworthy, I'm not worth it, even if you don't know it consciously, but subconsciously you were made to believe that, whether it was a really rough childhood, whether it was a toxic relationship, maybe, you know, just not having the right role models, right? What is basically forming your world? How were you raised? What did you surround yourself by? What people were around you? Because that influenced who you are today. But the great news is that when you start taking steps into a different direction to become self-empowered, and that's what the show is all about, get self-empowered, understand the tools are out there. We're in the age of information. And if people are not taking, the driver's seat of that information, well, ignorance is ultimately a choice. And so the goal today is to highlight a lot of great things in one space with one practitioner today who understands the importance of the baseline, yes, chemistry, but also the importance of the emotional piece and that tapping work that you did, and how to integrate them together to have that powerful life. Because not only is it affecting your health, which by the way is your vehicle, right? If you're not feeling well, you're not going to perform well. But then when that starts coming together, your emotions of gratitude, of joy, of the sense of relief, and this ultimate joy of loving yourself. Because in order to show up for yourself every day and do these things is to say, I love me. And to love me means I reclaim my life back. And when I reclaim my life back, I step up into the version I was meant to be on this earth, which is what this is all about, right? Is who do you want to be and how do you want to show up? And do you want to let go of whatever it is that's holding you back? And autoimmunity is huge. A lot of people don't even know they have it, or they think it's just that one condition, and it just magically all of a sudden the immunity just started, attacking itself. And that's not normal. Think about it. The immune system worked fine for years. And then all of a sudden it's just going to wake up one day and start turning on itself. Something turned on that switch. So this
Absolutely.
is where I really tell people, do the research. Science really is the new version of mysticism. It's explaining how our cells are so powerful. Dr. Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief, I urge you to pick that book up. The Placebo, Dr. Joe Dispenza, I urge you, these are hardcore scientists that have done the research and showing how emotions are so big. So if somebody decides to take you on as a coach, Alyssa, what would they, experience? Because you do coaching. It's not like here's your protocol, goodbye, but you actually work with people to become that catalyst to help them become faster, more empowered, and get the results that they're looking for. Where could they find you, and what would they expect from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work as a coach online, and I really like to incorporate that whole holistic experience where we're addressing the physical, we're addressing the emotional, we're addressing the nutrition. I want it to be as whole as possible, where we're making sure that we are making a solid foundation and we're addressing every aspect possible that's necessary for your healing and for your growth. So it can be individualized depending on what that person is dealing with. I have certain things that I incorporate in every practice because I think that it's so important for every single person. Even though we are bio-individual beings, we do have common denominators that are really important that we all, address, like our daily habits, our nutrition, certain things like that. So I really like to work with individuals on seeing beyond the physical, but being able to see every aspect that is necessary for their healing journey and make it in a way so it's practical. It's practical to implement, it's practical to stick to, and really building up their confidence on creating those daily habits that support the life that they want to be able to live, that's pain-free and symptom-free and having a better state of well-being. I do a lot of information. I offer a lot of information and tips and tricks on autoimmunity through my Instagram page, which is the Holistic Ginger. It's the.holistic.ginger. That's for Instagram. I do also have a website, which is theholisticginger.com. And that's the best way to find me. I definitely am very active, I would say the most on Instagram. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if there's any information that you would like to see shared. If you're dealing with an autoimmune condition and you're like, hey, this is a question I would love for you to address, or I would like some more information on, please reach out to me. I'm happy to, talk about it and to shed some light on that specific topic if you have one. So yeah.
Love it. Last but not least, and by the way, her Instagram's amazing. Great tips there. I've seen a lot of great shares that you have. If you are challenged, someone that's challenged with autoimmunity, honestly, this is one Instagram account you definitely want to check out. Last but not least, if you can talk a little bit about one of my favorite products that I'm always bringing up, that I, lecture around the world upon with other health practitioners, is our reishi infused coffee. And, we
Yes.
love our king because it's got the spores, but they also have their bold black and all this whole line of one of the best hacks, health hacks that I know. Quick, easy to use, and very effective, because I know you felt the difference on the product right away, didn't you?
Oh my gosh, within 4 days. And it was so incredible to me because I work with a lot of different supplement companies, and I've, been fortunate enough to have the opportunity to try so many different supplements, and I was so passionate about medicinal mushrooms. And even though I was experimenting with different medicinal mushroom products, I wasn't seeing like that profound transformation that I was kind of hoping to receive based off of all the scientific research and evidence that supported medicinal mushrooms. And when I found organo and I started seeing testimonies, and I was like, okay, I need to try this stuff. And I noticed a significant shift within 4 days. And the wonderful thing about the reishi coffee specifically is typically with autoimmune coffee, I mean, it's not really a good idea for anybody, but specifically for autoimmune, we got mycotoxins, you've got pesticides, you've got so many things in coffee that are really contraindicative to healing from autoimmune. But having a high quality coffee that's, tested for the mycotoxins, it doesn't have the pesticides and herbicides, and then you're infusing it with something that's alkaline to take the acidity away and that helps to heal the body, man, it's a no-brainer. You still get to enjoy your daily morning habit of coffee. You get to also reduce some inflammation in the process, improve your mood. I mean, it's was one of those things where I'm like, I was so excited. I was so excited when I found it because I was like, I still get to enjoy my coffee and I know I'm getting medicinal benefits from it. And I actually noticed a difference. Like my mood just went from like maybe a 6 or 7 to probably a 9, where I just felt more of an elevated, happy state every day, especially after drinking my coffee. The inflammation started to go down significantly in my body. The psoriasis that had been stubborn on my scalp healed. So, I mean, medicinal mushrooms, you guys, reishi is the real deal, but it's so important when picking a product. It's the quality. How is it grown? How is it extracted? And that's why the spores are so unique with organo, because we have a specific patented process on the extraction. And the spores have a double process for bioavailability, which means that the way that they do the extraction on the spores makes them much easier for the system to absorb. So you're making sure you're getting,
Thank you.
pardon?
We gotta stop the show because we're
Oh
coming to,
shit.
you know what? If you want to know more, reach out to Alyssa. Follow her on Instagram, the the ginger, the
The
holistic ginger.
holistic gender.
Find her on Instagram. She has got access to this wonderful coffee. Stay tuned for our coffee commercial. And remember to tune in every other Friday. We'll have you on the show again, Alyssa. It's been very exciting to share. Guys, you've been blessed with amazing life. Make 2021 a super powerful one. Our goal here is to help you live to your maximum potential, your genetic potential, for you to be the best version of yourselves. So happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Alyssa, for joining us, and
Thanks
connect.
for having me.
Get some of those more pearls, everyone. Stay tuned, and thank you for joining us. Thanks, Alyssa.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.